Am I shit recording, bro? Oh yeah. Hey, what's good, YouTube? I told y'all we was doing this video today. A fucking 3-hour video, but y'all not getting it all at once. Yeah. 4 minutes in, cause this shit apparently is an intro. I'm not watching that. But yeah, I'm gonna break this shit down into 3 parts. About an hour each. What else was I gonna say? Whatever, don't matter. Oh yeah, hey, streaming tonight. I'ma try at least. If not, I'ma stream Saturday night for sure. Saturday night going into Sunday night. So yeah, let's see what the fuck this Trap Lord Ross nigga talking about. No Limit, Chicago's deadliest gang, I guess.
Tend to have long and storied histories. The Black Disciples and the Gangster Disciples that the likes of King Von and FBG Duck belonged to respectively also had a long history themselves. The BDs and the GDs folklore dates all the way back to the 60s, when the likes of Larry Hoover and David Barksdale fought for influence over the city's drug trade and thousands of young men looking for guidance in the most troubled areas of Chicago, and unfortunately leaving countless bodies in their wake. But when it comes to today's Eastside-based No Limit gang, the modern-day rappers and gangsters that rep No Limit actually descended from another Chicago street gang with a very long and complicated history too. In this case, it's the Black P Stones.
In the 60s, the biggest, baddest gang of all was the Blackstone Rangers. One of its organizers was a skinny kid from Aberdeen, Mississippi, an unlikely-looking leader by the name of Jeff Fort.
Originally known as the Blackstone Rangers, this was a street gang formed by young black men who lived around 66th Place and Blackstone Avenue in Chicago's South Side. This crew was apparently formed all the way back in 1959 at the St. Charles Institution for Troubled Youth by Eugene the Bull Hairston and Jeff the Angel Fort. And like many of the famous street gangs that we know today, the Blackstone Rangers originally formed to protect its members from the danger of the many other street gangs that were emerging in the streets of Chicago around the time.
Racial change, economic change, cultural change, they grew out of that turmoil.
One particular rival that the Blackstone Rangers had formed to protect themselves against were the Devil's Disciples from nearby Kenwood, not to be confused with the biker gang of the same name. Back and forth street battles between these two crews persisted throughout the 60s, by which point an estimated 200 people had joined the Blackstone Rangers, giving not only the rival gangs something to worry about, but also the local police.
Had you as a police officer ever seen anything like that before?
No. Never.
Eugene Hairston was the founder and leader of the Blackstone Rangers, going by the nickname Bull, with Jeff Fort his vice president and second in command, with him going by the monikers Black Prince or Angel, the latter apparently coming from his gift for diplomacy and an ability to help squash conflicts between the Rangers and other gangs. In fact, unlike the modern-day gangs of Chicago, who seem primarily concerned with settling scores and murdering rivals, back then Jeff Fort's talent for diplomacy were deployed in an effort to prevent the Blackstone Rangers from going to war and killing other gangs, with Jeff Fort instead attempting to forge alliances between these small and fractured street crews. And he was very successful at this, eventually forming a sprawling alliance or nation of gangs, counting a total membership in 1969 to be as many as 8,000 members, and forming a council of numerous gangs aiming to control the city, going by the title the Main 21.
21 gangs would join under the umbrella of the Blackstone Rangers. There would be a ruling council called the Main 21 and a new gang name, the Black P Stone Nation. Some would argue the P stood for power. The nation was 4,000 strong. There were some struggles over
Black Power
leadership,
Stone don't even make fucking
it was
sense.
Jeff Fort who emerged as the man
You're
in
trying to
charge.
sound
All
smart.
the gangs were united under the banner of the Black P Stone Nation, or
Unless that's what a
BPSN.
name
Each gang in the
for.
nation were considered a
Oh,
brick
no
in the
beef,
pyramid,
nigga.
hence their infamous logo. And for a period starting in the 60s, the organization
Type
actually
shit.
gained political legitimacy, famously working with a local community association that had been given a $1 million grant, developing a program that aimed to get members of the Blackstone Rangers and the Devil's Disciples into honest work and employment programs. During this time publicly, the Black P Stones were beginning to look a lot more like a group of community activists than an active street gang. For example, some in politics around this time had praised the P Stones for having played a role in preventing violent reprisals from the black community in the wake of the Martin Luther King assassination. This had politicians at the time praising Jeff Fort for his successful gang diplomacy, with Fort even being invited to President Nixon's inauguration, leading many to believe that Jeff Fort might just have a bright future in politics. But under the surface, things were perhaps slightly more sinister. It was said that during this period, Black Peace Stones had been shaking down local store owners for protection money in exchange for preventing violence following the Martin Luther King assassination, with critics of the Black Peace Stones describing them more as a mafiosa-style protection.
Hey, bro, I swear every city got a Martin Luther King drive. Like, is that shit like normal?
Begin to emerge in the public persona of the Black Peace Stones. On the streets, they were
like, is that shit in every fucking city?
Nation that would later merge into the Black and Gangster Disciple gangs, made famous in modern-day drill
like,
music. In fact, as a result of this violent conflict playing out on the streets, eventually the Black Peace Stones leader and founder, Eugene Bull Hairston, would arrange an assassination attempt on Black Disciples founder David Barksdale, aka King David, in 1968. The shooting of King David would be carried out by a group of 14-year-old Peace Stone members who would attempt to assassinate David Barksdale armed with M14 rifles in a contract killing being paid only a sum of $1 each. King David would initially survive this assassination attempt, but unfortunately his gunshot injuries would later claim his life around 6 years after the shooting.
Ads on YouTube
God
are so annoying.
damn it.
But with 3 clicks, you can install an ad blocker and you'll never see ads again. Step
I can't wait till I'm able to hit fuck nigga with two ads, bro.
Ad extension. Step 3.
This shit is ridiculous.
Eventually, the authorities would crack down on the Black Peace Stones.
Tired of these fucking ads all the time.
Prosecuting Jeff Fort himself for
Nigga, go get a
misusing
job.
funds in connection to the job training program made possible by the city's $1 million grant. This was a move which some considered simply a right-wing attack on Black Chicago's attempt to bring about legitimate change through politics.
We were trying to do something about a situation that was literally destroying this community.
With many pointing out that only a fraction of that $1 million grant ended up in the hands of the Peace Stones, but that simply didn't matter when the headlines read, "Gang leader steals $1 million from the US government." Jeff Fort would later be found guilty of conspiring to misapply federal funds, being sentenced to 5 years in prison. During his time in jail, Jeff Fort would convert to Islam, more specifically, the Black Muslim
Why this shit don't ever tell me who the fuck
Science Temple of America.
is viewing my
Upon being
shit?
freed in 1976, Fort would form the El Ruckan tribe of the Moorish Science Temple, with El Ruckan.
Yo, who the fuck is in here, bro?
Arabic, and coming up with a new nickname, swapping out the formerly diplomatic title of the Angel, now referring to himself as Chief Malik, or the Ruler. And in the process of establishing his new religious organization, Jeff Fort also purchased an old vacant movie theater called the Oakwood on 39th and Drexel. This would become the legitimate headquarters for the El Ruckan, and the religious transformation of the Black Peace Stones was presented to the public as a positive change for the group. However, local authorities thought otherwise, insisting that Jeff Fort's new religious organization was simply a front for a large drug dealing operation that would operate throughout Chicago through the 70s and 80s. And during this time, Jeff Fort organized yet another alliance of gangs in the city and prisons known as the People Nation, bringing the likes of the former Black Peace Stones, the Latin Kings, Mickey Cobras, Vice Lords, and other gangs all together under the banner of the People Nation. I mean, despite the negativity that he brought to his community, you do really have to admire the vision that Jeff Fort had to try and bring this many people together in his community. And perhaps people were truly right when they said he had a lot of potential in real politics. But the reality was, Jeff Fort was playing with fire, and eventually the authorities would crack down on his operation. A 1983 drug bust, in connection to a large shipment of drugs in Mississippi, earned Jeff Fort a 13-year sentence for narcotics trafficking. But from here, even in prison, it would appear as if Jeff Fort kept a tight grip on the large organization of gangs that he had built up in the streets of Chicago. And this meant that even behind bars, bloodshed would continue to play out on Chicago's streets. For example, in September 1988, the original founder of the Blackstone Nations, Eugene Bull Hairston, would be killed execution-style, with authorities certain that Jeff Fort that had handed down the orders from prison. But even more shocking than the allegations of drug trafficking and murder for hire were earlier accusations leveled at Jeff Fort relating to terrorism and linking him to Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi. Apparently, over the course of several phone calls made to his troops from jail, Jeff Fort instructed members of his organization to meet officials from Libya in what was originally proposed as a pilgrimage to Mecca and the Middle East, was later exposed as an attempt to make a multi-million-dollar deal with Middle Eastern terrorists, as apparently Jeff Fort had directed El Ruckan members to meet with Libyans in Panama City and brokering a deal to receive $2.5 million and a large
what's that fucking website on the bottom of my
in
shit?
exchange for a commitment to wage war on the local authorities in the United States in what was described as Operation Ruck Bomb. A court was later told that Jeff Fort's religious organization / gang had made an agreement with a foreign government to commit terrorist acts in the United States on their behalf in exchange for a $2.5 million bag. Honestly,
this is one of the most telling me one viewer in my shit, but I got niggas say 3 right here, man.
In the United States history.
Niggas trying to scam me.
Guilty of these accusations and ultimately given a hefty 80-year prison sentence. Jeff Fort is still alive to this day, serving out that sentence at the ADX Florence Supermax prison, one of America's most secure and brutal prison facilities. Jeff Fort's family still fight for his release to this day, but just considering the insane amount of danger and terror he was able to inflict on the Chicago community, and considering what he and his organization were attempting to do in cooperation with a foreign government, it's very hard to believe that his release will be coming anytime soon. The history of Jeff Fort and the Black Peace Stones continue to cast a dark shadow over Chicago communities to this day, as the next generation of children of Peace Stone and affiliated gang members would move around Chicago and grow up. The identity of the Black Peace Stones would be passed around, splintered and distorted, with numerous small organizations breaking off, but retaining the Peace Stone identity and remaining active in the streets and prisons of Chicago and America beyond. But eventually, a renegade set descending from the original Peace Stones would emerge based in Chicago's east side. This group would eventually go by the name No Limit, with the name apparently signaling a heritage handed down from the Black Peace Stones, but with no interest in following the rules or limits imposed by some of the more militant forefathers of the gang back in the day when it was a religious or political movement. The young orphans of Jeff Fort's fallen organization would grow up and cultivate their own identities and feuds, which would get very deadly indeed. Violence would continue to play out all over Chicago, particularly one small area of territory in the east, which would eventually become so dangerous that it would earn itself the nickname Terror Town.
Here this nigga go with these fucking ads, bro. Like, I can't even slide one ad, and this nigga posted 2 damn near 9 minutes in. Fuck out of here, nigga. I'm done.
Today's story is most concerned with a 4-block by 4-block rectangle of territory bounded by Yates and Colfax Avenues between 75th and 79th Street. If you type Terrortown into YouTube, you'll see numerous drive-thrus and drone shots depicting the rundown blocks of the area, which looks to be near abandoned by city authority. Shots depicting the rundown blocks of the area, which looks to be near abandoned by city authorities. And residents say that in these areas, murder is a common occurrence. In the 90s, after the incarceration of Jeff Fort, his son Antonio was one of many descendants of the original Peace Stones who fought for control of this area, with the battles taking place on the streets there apparently being so deadly and terrifying that the area would eventually become known as Terrortown. And naturally, with the infamy of his famous father, it wouldn't take long for Antonio Fort to find himself a target. In 1992, Antonio Fort would be jailed for conspiracy to purchase half a kilo of cocaine. And after his release, power struggles would continue in the area. Events would unfold unfortunately for Antonio, and on the 28th of March 1997, Antonio's bullet-riddled body would be dragged out of Wolf Lake. And in the decade that followed, petty violence would play out as more and more gangsters vied for control of the streets of Terrortown. And if the rival gangs didn't get you, the police certainly would. As the years went by, slowly descendants of Jeff Fort would be taken off the street one by one, facing arrest after arrest, with his other son Wakita picked up for drug charges by the police in 1996, with reports around this time explaining that since Jeff Fort's lengthy incarceration in a Supermax facility, the religious focus of the El Ruckin that he had started had fallen away, with his remaining descendants reclaiming the Black Peace Stone identity and going to war with other famous Chicago gangs like the Gangster Disciples over control of the area. During these years, a nephew of Jeff Fort named Eric Gothero earned himself the nickname the Prince of Terrortown, apparently establishing a huge open-air drug operation at 79th and Essex known as the Pow Wow Line, a scene which I imagine wasn't dissimilar to the fictional open-air drug market Amsterdam depicted in HBO's The Wire. But eventually,
I'd have finished that fucking show, bro.
Would indeed be taken down too in what the police described as Operation Terrortown 2. Jeff Fort's nephew would be busted along with 18 other people in a raid that discovered an enormous shrine to Jeff Fort himself, along with 13 cars, 10 guns, 125 grams of cocaine, and a whopping 900 grams of heroin. And as a result, the gangs on the streets of Terrortown in the 2010s would be left without leadership, becoming a much more fractured collection of renegade Peace Stone gang sets, slowly losing their connection to Jeff Fort, the Blackstone Rangers, or the heritage of politically motivated gangs that had once controlled the area. Teenage gangbangers would grow up, knowing they descended from Peace Stones, but establishing new rules, new territories, and new disputes, with the young teenagers in the area giving very little thought to the religious, political, or social movements that Jeff Fort had at least tried to pioneer through the 60s, 70s, and 80s. But more interesting than that to me was that in the streets and blocks of Terrortown were the next generation of young men growing up close to the cycle of violence and gang warfare that their elders had endured, with some taking part in the war, killing and being killed as part of a new generation of conflict in the streets of Terrortown, while others would take the scenes that they had experienced and witnessed and channeling those experiences into music, making hit songs about the lifestyle that they'd grew up around, becoming successful musical artists and getting a once-in-a-lifetime shot to escape the cycle of violence and get out of the city with their lives intact. Despite 75th to 79th Streets being so dangerous and gang-infested that it's literally nicknamed Terrortown, the area, particularly 79th Street, has spawned some of the biggest Chicago rappers who avoided gangs. You may be surprised to find out that one of the most successful musicians and entrepreneurs of our generation, Kanye West, grew up in a childhood home only minutes away from Terrortown. And despite later in his career claiming to be affiliated with the Gangsta Disciples, Kanye actually had early lyrics where he discussed encountering black peace stones in the neighborhood and having to go by a nickname so they would leave him alone. And Kanye would even bring rap legend Jay-Z back to the area many years later.
Why?
So the most famous name in the rap game associated with the No Limit gang in Terrortown, we're of course talking about G Herbo, formerly known as Lil Herb. Herbo would meet fellow No Limit drill legend Lil Bibby at a local youth center after school. Together, Herbo and Bibby would spark a friendship, eventually becoming collaborators and putting their block on the map as far as drill music is concerned. Lil Bibby made big moves in the music industry through both the booth and the boardroom, eventually partnering up with his brother G Money and starting the record label Grade A Productions, playing a big role in bringing top-tier talent like Juice WRLD and the Kid Laroi to the forefront of music. But away from the music and back to the streets, another famous name you might associate with No Limit is Cairo, an outspoken affiliate who will play a major part in the beef as this story develops. And another name from the streets that you might know from the music is Mad Max, aka C Money or Killer Chris. He's possibly the most active killer in the street side of this story, becoming infamous in both the streets and on the internet for allegedly being a fearless shooter who claimed the lives of numerous enemies. Now, as far as the streets goes, there were allegedly two main leaders of No Limit back in the early days. Rumored to be a direct relative of Blackstone Rangers founder Eugene Bull Hairston, G Bull was from 78th Street, one of two commanding members of No Limit who apparently played a role in mentoring the likes of Lil Bibby, White Sean and G Money, with another gang leader by the name of G Gill, hailing from 79th Street, commanding another set of the younger generation of No Limit, mentoring the likes of G Mainsky, G Herbo, Jock, and Mad Max himself, who would post publicly on Instagram about coming up under G Gill. Other important names associated with the No Limit movement who you might hear mentioned in this story include Faro, Lil Wet, aka Wet 'em Up, and Crazy James. There's quite literally dozens of people who claim No Limit publicly, with some estimates of its membership online suggesting that the gang is 200 people strong. It would be difficult to identify and name every member here, and that's really not something I'm trying to do right now. But that's a
nigga, you made a 3-hour video. You might as well.
Story. The fact that No Limit is such a large gang is perhaps the reason that the crew was able to survive at such a long war with so many enemies. As in this story, there are 3 distinct feuds going on between No Limit and their allies and their enemies in different parts of the city. The 3 groups that No Limit and their allies are feuding with specifically include the Lakeside Gangsta Disciples, some of whom go by KTS or Kill to Survive, Pocket Town, another group of Gangsta Disciples,
and the niggas deep.
A group descending from the original Black Peace.
I'm gonna lie to you, is it worth it?
Let's start by taking a closer look at the Lakeside GDs, some of whom go by the terrifying nickname KTS or Kill to Survive.
This nigga go with the ads again.
YouTube must be so annoying, but with 3 clicks,
you fucking think?
And you'll never see
say no more. It's over with on me. Nigga done fucked up now. You know, need it. Appreciate it. Come on. Where it's at? Nah. Ah, this nigga's salty.
Step 1. Go to adblocker360.com.
Why is it still playing? Get a job, nigga.
Its biggest opposition. They're a crew made up of Gangsta Disciples and Vice Lords in a particular area of Terrortown. South of Terrortown is No Limit territory.
Get a fucking job, buddy.
Southeast, known as Lakeside, hence the intense rivalry between these 2 groups. In fact, the nearby McDonald's, located on 2425 East 79th Street, has been the scene of much bloodshed and drama in this feud, but we'll get to that later. Some from this area and the nearby Pocket Town go by the nickname KTS or Kill to Survive, sometimes sometimes referred to as Cutthroat. The terrifying implications of those nicknames alone should be enough to give you an idea of just how deadly this feud can get. In fact, some KTS members even sport a large shoot-to-kill crosshair tattoo on their necks, a terrifying prospect which likely
Imagine getting
inspired fear
hit right in
into
your
pretty much
shit
anyone
right
these
there.
guys encountered, gang member or not. In fact, KTS members had local residents so terrified that there's examples from back in 2010 with locals posting lists of gang members to avoid on Facebook and telling others that their area is under attack. Associated
I
with
need
this
to
group,
post
you've
this
got the
link
likes of
on
KTS Dre and KTS Von,
Facebook.
both feared
Matter of
hitters due
fact.
to their family's gang ties, with their father Vinny apparently having a deep history
Need more
of involvement in the
followers.
local gangs. Vinny was apparently an OG gang member from the area who had clearly taught his sons the ways of the street from early. But in addition to being shooters, the likes of Von and Dre were also prolific posters on social media, being seen in numerous clips online, driving through rival territories armed and looking for a response. Another significant Lakeside member who will be important later in this story is Posto, a local member who would sadly lose his life with
Nigga
this incident
Posto,
representing
nigga?
yet another significant escalation in the war between these two areas. But before we get to that, there's actually another Lakeside member whose killing would represent one of the early triggers of this deadly war. That young man's name is Nutso, who was killed by another group close to No Limit in 2008. That group's name is the Muskegon Boys. The Muskegon Boys are a set of gangster disciples from Terrortown. Originally going by the Muskegon Block Gangsters, they hail from 78th and Muskegon Avenue, just off of Exchange. This set was apparently
need
pioneered
to
by
get
two
my
locals,
fucking
going by the street
stream
names
link.
of Doski and Whitebread. In the past, they may have been considered closer to the fellow gangster disciples in Lakeside, but events would unfold, driving these two GD sets apart, and the Muskegon Boys and No Limit much closer
Live
together,
now
with the alliance
doing
between these two crews famously being NLMB or the
reaction.
No Limit Muskegon Boys, sometimes referred to with the backronym Never Leave My Brothers. Many of the younger members of No Limit Muskegon Boys would form close friendships, with several individuals playing a significant role as part of this story. People like Zale, Rock, Kobe, and Fazo. As mentioned previously, the Muskegon Boys and Lakeside had formerly been on good terms due to their shared GD heritage. But that would all change around 2008, when younger members of the Muskegon Boys would get their hands on firearms, ultimately leading to deadly outcomes between the crews. Eventually, a beloved member from Lakeside by the name of Nutso would be shot and killed. Nutso, real name Larry Pickens, was murdered on his porch at 7815 South Marquette Avenue in June 2008.
Bro, let me fucking
escalation between the Muskegon Boys and Lakeside, where the Muskegon Boys
post
eventually
this
forming
shit,
that NLMB
dude.
alliance with No Limit. But from here, things would get much more complicated. As I mentioned earlier, No Limit would be battling two other gang sets, in addition to their war with Lakeside. Playing a small part of this is a historical overlap between some members of Lakeside and Pocket Town. And to understand this, we've got to take a closer look at Pocket Town, another gang set who would battle No Limit fiercely for control of the streets of Chicago.
There we go.
Pocket Town is yet another gang with its heritage from the Black Pea Stones. This can be seen in graffiti all over the area depicting the 5-point star depicted in early Black Pea Stone folklore. This area apparently earned the name Pocket Town due to its triangular shape and is based towards the greater Grand Crossing area, a short drive west of Terrortown. Nearby Circon City is another older gang set with loose connections to No Limit. Gangs have been active in Pocket Town as far back as the 1980s. In fact, there's one kingpin from the area named Nate Hill, who became one of America's biggest drug traffickers, apparently forging close ties with the Black Pea Stones before eventually being taken down in a big bust. Now, according to comments on Reddit, the gangster disciples in Pocket Town in the 90s were somewhat organized, but fractures in the group throughout the 2000s would see individuals branching off, forming new alliances, and breaking free of the past as new feuds emerged between members from varying sets. For example, you've got the likes of Rio, hailing from Pocket Town, but also affiliated with KTS. One individual who played a role in early feuds related to Pocket Town goes by the name of Lil Pez, or Paris. He was murdered just age 16 in Grand Crossing in March 2008, being found with a gunshot wound to the head on the sidewalk of the 1300 block of East 72nd Street around 11 p.m. His sister would tell the news that she
I know, yo, nigga.
with local gangs.
Follow now.
Lil Pez had formed links with gang members in both Lakeside and Pocket Town, with it being believed that his killing marked a significant escalation in tension in the area. So by 2008, we have the likes of the Muskegon Boys and No Limit warring with the Lakeside GDs,
Follow, nigga, don't be
KTS,
stingy.
as well as former Peace Stones based in Pocket Town. But there's just one more piece to this complicated puzzle, because there's yet one more significant group famous for being constantly at war with No Limit. A set of gangsters based in the north of Terrortown, descending from the original Black Pea Stones, who go by the name of Black Mob. In the north of Terrortown, there's a territory controlled by a group called
How delayed is
Black
my
Mob,
shit,
based
nigga?
on
I know you
74th
heard
to
me.
75th and Phillips, only a few blocks north of 79th when No Limit call home. One of the most famous and feared names from Black Mob is Shooter Shells. Much like Mad Max, Shooter Shells had allegedly played a role in numerous killings as
Niggas
part of this
oh
feud,
yeah, there it go.
cultivating a fearsome reputation in the streets. But we'll learn more about him later in the story.
No,
Black
don't
Mob
just
is a
say it,
set branch
nigga.
from the
Follow.
original Peace Stones, descending from Jeff Fort, who claimed Terrortown since the early 90s. It's said that over the years following the large bust
Yeah,
of the original Peace Stone
appreciate
leadership
you, my
that
boy.
descended from Jeff Fort, Black Mob in the north would continue on the Peace Stone legacy, controlling the drug trade in the area. But as renegade Peace Stone sets like No Limit formed, for a period, these newer sets would be
What
expected
niggas
to pay
on?
a tax to the original generation of Black Peace Stones, Black Mob in the north. Essentially, if these new, younger No Limit gangsters wanted to sell drugs in Terrortown, they would have to pay the OGs from
niggas
Black
left
Mob.
already,
And
niggas
as you can probably
crazy.
imagine, that is where tension started. It's said that at some point in the 90s, former leader of No Limit, G Bull, was
Hey,
killed,
niggas.
though there's very little information online about that particular incident. But what we do know is that into the noughties, a new leadership figure
Chicago
for the
scene
No Limit
88.
emerged, a man known as
I just did a
Hellrel,
fucking
aka
reaction to
G-Rel
this
or
nigga,
Gotti,
y'all.
not to be confused with another Hellrel from Lakeside, who we'll discuss later in this story.
I forgot who
Until
it was,
this
but y'all
point,
go
Black
watch
Mob
that
and
shit.
No Limit had been
Tight
historically friendly, but soon a turf war would break out between these two factions. A No Limit member by the name of Vito had allegedly been selling drugs in Black Mob turf. He was ultimately attacked for not paying tax or showing respect to the elder Peace Stones control.
This a nigga that died in front of
Retaliation from
McDonald's.
No Limit would soon
No
follow.
disrespect
And
for
story has
shit.
it that Vito would attempt to shoot up an enemy from Black Mob, unsuccessfully attempting to kill them with their family present. And this reckless act of disrespect would apparently spark the bitter war between Black Mob and No Limit. Eventually, on the 27th of April 2009, Vito, real name Davis Johnson, would be murdered in the street in Terrortown. After apparently being confronted on the street about the disrespect, Vito was allegedly shot 5 times in front of a
That
large
nigga
crowd.
really
Police were called to the
typed
scene of
two
the shooting
things
at
and
around 1:20 in the
slid,
morning,
bro.
attending
My
the
shit tripping?
7800 block of South Essex, where they found Vito with gunshot wounds in his chest just a few blocks from his home,
Hell
and he
no.
would sadly be pronounced dead by 2:18 a.m. Vito's killer went by the name of Boo from Black Mob. Real name Trinity Walton. He was charged with the killing of Vito, ultimately getting 60 years in prison. The loss of Vito hit No Limit members hard, and surviving members would regularly bring him up in conversation and in songs. G Herbo would rap on his computer's freestyle that he drops the 5 for Vito, a reference to doing a downward 5-finger hand sign as a mark of disrespect to the 5-point star that represents the early Black Peace Stone movement, which Black Mob descended from. Dropping the 5s is essentially a Peace Stone killer hand sign. Showing respect for their fallen brother Vito would echo through everything the No Limit members did and said for years to come. Even many years later, when Lil Bibby signed Juice WRLD, he became so indoctrinated into the gang's way of talking, he'd regularly be seen on camera swearing on Vito's life in regular conversation. The killing of Vito caused No Limit members to identify.
You know that nigga Adam
BK or
22
Black
with the
Mob
shits.
killers. And considering the separate beef going on with the gangster disciples from Lakeside, many No Limit members would also identify with the GDK or GD Killer movement. In addition to dropping the 5, many would be seen in pictures doing the upside down pitchfork hand sign commonly associated with the GDK movement. And once again, upon signing to Lil Bibby, you might catch pop singer Juice WRLD throwing up GDK in numerous pictures too. And since this meant that No Limit members were beefing both Black Peace Stones and gangster disciples at the same time, many from No Limit would identify as EBK or Everybody Killers. Sadly, however, the murder of Vito was just the beginning of a long and bloody war between these groups. And in the decade plus that would follow, countless men from every corner and pocket of Terrortown would lose their lives to gun violence. And while not every killing in this story would be associated with these specific feuds, the sad truth is the young members growing up in Terrortown would be forced to witness death and destruction throughout their most formative years, no doubt having an incredibly detrimental effect on their mindsets and prospects for the future. The next tragedy would strike on July the 2nd, 2009, when senior NLMB member James Robinson, aka J-Mo or Prince Chico, would be shot and killed around 10 p.m. near the 79th Street of Yates Avenue. He was found by police on the street with a bullet in his head. Prince Chico would be another of the names that would be sorely missed by the young members of No Limit. Just like Vito, G Herbo would go on to memorialize Chico in several of his songs, like the track East Side Story, where he would reminisce growing up around Vito, Hellrel, and Chico in the neighborhood. Fortunately, Herbo was one of the examples of a Terrortown native who was able to take what he witnessed in the streets and turn it into art. Sadly, many others wouldn't be so lucky. And to make matters worse, it wouldn't only be the ops that young men in Terrortown would have to fear, as many of the young teenagers in the area, forced to carry weapons to defend themselves from potential rivals, hell-bent on shooting at them and taking their lives, as a result would unfortunately also face the prospect of the police shooting at them too. In April 2010, Zale, a beloved member of the Muskegon Boys, will become the latest young man in Terrortown to lose their life to gun violence. But in this case, instead of being shot by the ops, Zale would lose his life after a dramatic shootout with Chicago police. He was allegedly stopped by the cops at 10:30 p.m., jumping out of the car and apparently opening fire. The police would return fire, striking Zale, real name Isaiel Jackson, eventually taking him into custody and taking his weapon. But sadly, his injuries would be too much, and he'd be pronounced dead at 1:45 a.m. After this incident, some from No Limit would say that they were CPDK, a trend that surely would worry the police at the time. But sadly, the loss of Zale would be followed by the murder of another beloved member from the Muskegon Boys, as on April the 12th, 2010, 19-year-old Faison Robinson, known as G Fazo to his friends, was participating in a dice game at the 2900 block of East 79th Street. At some point, apparently things went left, with gunshots being heard and the police responding to reports of a shooting. Once they arrived on the scene, they would find Fazo shot in the back, taking him to South Shore Hospital, where he would sadly be pronounced dead. Fazo would be sorely missed by his friends in the No Limit Muskegon Boys, with the likes of G Herbo going on to shout out Fazo countless times in his songs. He would also name his popular 2014 debut mixtape Welcome to Fazo Land, as well as popularizing a trend of referring to white Nike Air Forces as G Fazos in his honor. This is something that future pop sensation Juice WRLD would do in some of his songs, with this apparently coming from the fact that Fazo himself was a huge fan of the popular Nike sneaker silhouette. No arrests were made following G Fazo's killing, but many believe that the killing was the result of the ongoing beef with Lakeside. Following his passing, images of G Fazo would circulate with the caption Lakeside Killer, suggesting that perhaps before his death he had indeed played a role in violence against Lakeside, possibly attracting retaliation. However, others that are closer to Fazo would suggest that his death at the dice game was nothing to do with the ongoing feud, but regardless of who was responsible, it's believed that Faison was a top member of the Muskegon Boys, leading to their enemies in Lakeside taking advantage of this loss and beginning to target Fazo's friends and family. Exactly a year after Fazo's death, a memorial barbecue in celebration of his life was held at 79th and Escanaba Avenue. Here, Fazo's family and friends would be gathered on the block when a car pulled up, slowing down, rolling down the window, and someone inside opening fire. 4 grown men and a 10-year-old boy would be hit, but fortunately no deaths were recorded. Sadly, this was just another example of how ruthless the shooters in this story were willing to get. And from here, naturally, things would continue to escalate and blood would continue to spill between these two warring groups.
Yeah, I know ass, nigga.
No Limit Muskegon
Fuck out of here.
Continued in Terrortown throughout 2011.
I don't even know, they tried to hit me with
Blair's
a
real name Randall Cummings, an older figure in the
niggas
No
is
Limit
talking
community,
shit.
and allegedly the father of Faro from No Limit, who would have only been 7 years old at the time, would be shot multiple times, being found lying dead at 6801 South Crandon Avenue. Witnesses say that after an argument, a silver car fled the scene, with this happening just down the road from a police station, with the police themselves even hearing the gunshots. Now, popular Chicago drill documentary channel Chicago Scene 88 has suggested that the alleged shooter in this crime was KTS Rio from Pockettown. And if Chicago Scene 88's research is to be believed, No Limit would hold a near decade-long grudge against Rio for this incident. But sadly, only days after that incident, another of No Limit's enemies would end up losing their life. Hakeem Graham, a 20-year-old with suspected ties to Black Mob, was shot multiple times and killed on June the 6th, 2011. And then another suspected affiliate of Black Mob was gunned down on November the 1st, 2011 at 7:45 in the morning at the bus stop at the 2400 block of East 75th Street. 18-year-old Rayvon Martin was shot in the back of the head, execution style, as a bus approached. 2011 was a bloody year in Terrortown, but things would only escalate further in 2012 when one of the most bloody incidents in this story took place on the streets of Chicago. On February the 19th, 2012, just before 7 p.m, Lakeside members had driven through No Limit territory looking for their ops. At this point, they apparently spotted a large group of No Limit members standing outside of a liquor store on the 2500 block of East 79th Street at the intersection with Essex Avenue. A shooter in a beige vehicle allegedly leaned out the car, opening fire at the group with an automatic weapon with an extended clip. 5 people were injured in the shooting but survived, including a 14-year-old, but 2 people would sadly lose their lives at the scene. A 53-year-old by the name of Gregory Glindsey, also known as Alamo, and a 19-year-old by the name of Jamal Harris, also known as Rock. Despite causing numerous injuries, the KTS shooters from Lakeside didn't break the spirits of the No Limit soldiers. Going forward, they would openly honor their fallen friend Rock, beginning to refer to their territory in Terrortown as Rock Block. Rock is actually the reason that you'll hear the likes of G Herbo and others frequently referring to where they're from as Rock Block, and Herbo himself would go on to honor Rock in many songs. KTS Von, heavily rumored to have been involved with the shooting, would mock Rock's death on Instagram, posting an image of Rock's headstone with a gun and pow emoji. Others affiliated with KTS would later take to social media to mock No Limit's losses and bait them to retaliate. But sadly, the violence was still just escalating from here. 6 months later, on August the 23rd,
Nah, King Lagging is
another mass
crazy.
shooting targeting No Limit members would leave another 8 people injured. With this incident taking place on the 7800 block of South Essex Avenue, only a block away from the previous mass shooting that claimed the lives of Rock and Alamo. According to police, 2 people opened fire from a moving car around 9:15 p.m. 8 people would be shot in this drive-by, with the news reporting victims from ages 14 to 28. A 28-year-old man was shot in the knee, a 16-year-old boy shot in the foot, another 16-year-old boy shot in the leg, a 20-year-old man shot in the leg, a 18-year-old
damn, them
shot in the
niggas.
arm, a 15-year-old shot in the neck,
The
and a
fuck?
19-year-old woman shot in the arm. The day after this
What's
shooting,
good, hoodie?
Cairo from No Limit would tweet, telling the world that he was in pain.
Nigga, ain't you in
Herbo
school?
was also one of the individuals targeted in these incidents, with Herb later opening up in interviews about being in the shooting that hit 8 people, including his 13-year-old cousin.
It was kind of big. It was like 8 of us got shot. Me, my younger cousin. My cousin was like 13.
Apparently at one point Herbo himself was shot in the foot, and apparently at one point a bullet passed through his hat, narrowly missing his head.
I got hit actually in the foot, like it was minor. And the bullet went like through my head, like I had my head on like on some Swiss Beats type shit. A lot of leg shots and stuff like that.
After the shooting, G Herbo and G Pharaoh
Not
would go
reading
back and
that.
forth on Twitter, arguing over who had the worst lower body injury from the shootout, with Pharaoh himself claiming to have taken multiple bullets to the leg. Meanwhile, Ramo from No Limit would tweet, telling his comrades from Rock Block to get well soon. This enormous wave of shootings shocked the Chicago community, with the Chicago Sun-Times posting a provocative cover story with an enormous headline reading Terror Town and a picture from the scene of the shooting of a body lying in the street. Others reporting on the incident referred to a war between 2 factions of the Black Peace Stones, perhaps a reference to No Limit and Black Mob. And to make the story even more crazy, after that second
Yo,
shooting,
appreciate the follow,
according to
bro.
police, a dozen squad cars were sent to a nearby motel where a car riddled with bullets and covered in blood was spotted after the shooting. An apparent trail of blood leading from the car into one of the rooms would end with a dramatic SWAT team raid that, unfortunately for the police, led to nobody being found, and the cops ultimately being unable to determine whether the blood belonged to a shooter or a victim that had fled the scene. As a result, in an effort to disrespect No Limit going forward, KTS Von would begin referring to them as No Limbs. And naturally, in retaliation to both shootings and the ongoing disrespect from the ops, No Limit members would hit the streets looking for revenge. In the days following the incident, G Herbo had tweeted about following the shooter, then going on to tweet that he had just got off the phone with his own shooter, telling them that he needs to see something on the news. And then 2 days later, on August the 27th,
Where you send a message at, bro?
3 people got shot on the
Oh,
fire,
here?
referring to Black Mob territory where Herbo's auntie lived, as well as firing off another tweet saying that his hitters are still in the field for him. G Herbo clearly went through a lot during this time, and his life in the dangerous streets of Terrortown as a member of No Limit meant that he could be the target of an assassination at any moment. Most of the No Limit members couldn't really stay safe in the streets of Chicago, but that very same month of the second
Man, I don't
shooting,
see
a
no
couple of
message,
young
bro.
men from No Limit made the decision to try something different, making some music about the lifestyle that they were experiencing at the time, with no idea just how big their music would eventually become, eventually attracting millions of fans and
Oh,
a
I see.
potential route out of the dangerous blocks of Terrortown. G Herbo had started out rapping, just recording little 60-second songs on his flip phone, and this was something he had apparently been encouraged to do by his fellow No Limit homie Lil Bibby. Lil Bibby and G Herbo met in a youth group that they were forced to attend in order to keep out of trouble, and after sparking up a shared love of music, Bibby would later take G Herbo to a studio on 79th and Duella to record professional standard music, with this experience ultimately leading them to make many songs together. Lil Herb, as he was known then, and Lil Bibby would have their first Chicago drill hit on August the 5th, 2012, when they uploaded their song Kill Shit to YouTube. That song today has over 50 million views on YouTube and over 20 million streams on Spotify. Kill Shit was a breakthrough moment for No Limit in the rap game, and Herbo and Bibby would be putting their whole crew on the map. They had lyrics referencing the grimy life that they had lived in Terrortown. The track had Herbo rapping about how he knows people ready to do homicides. He raps that the gang No Limit are 30 years running and 30 years gunning. He shout-outs 150, another name for the rock block, which would become a frequent quotable in Herbo's music. Bibby would show love to Rock on the track and vowing to shoot at his ops, claiming his affiliation to No Limit in numerous lyrics, and dropping bars where he claims that he will shoot their ops off of their porches. Bibby even goes as far as to say RIP the police, and saying that his team are cop killers, perhaps an earlier reference to No Limit members claiming to be CPDK after the death of Zale. These violent and grimy rap verses, combined with a banging 2012 era Chicago drill beat, cemented Kill Shit as a hit. One of the founding tracks of the Chicago drill movement, which up until that point in 2012 had been dominated by Black Disciple rappers like Chief Keef. The success of Kill Shit would bring a taste of legitimate passive income to the young members of the No Limit crew, with the rap game emerging as one of the first opportunities to break the cycle and see some success outside of the dangerous streets of Terrortown. Some would be able to get out that way, but others might not be able to take the same route. And so, in spite of positive signs in music, the remainder of 2012 would be incredibly rough for the No Limit Muskegon boys, as they would continue to be targeted by rivals, with one particular exchange of violence being captured on video and being immortalized forever as one of the most haunting moments in Chicago drill history. G Herbo and Lil Bibby weren't the only Terrortown.
I thought this nigga was about to start rapping. I ain't gonna lie to you.
KTS members had been making their own songs too, releasing early tracks to YouTube in October 2012, mainly rapping over Atlanta-style trap beats. KTS Von will release songs like Smoke, which featured lyrics dissing Gotti, a member from an unrelated rival gang to Lakeside, whom was allegedly the first person that KTS Von had killed, with his adlib and catchphrase "Don't Go Gotti" appearing frequently in his music and on the clothes of KTS members. And Von would end the song with the terrifying lyric, "Don't be surprised if the cutthroats kill ya." He had another big song drop in October of 2012 called I'm Off Dat, where he rapped his Lakeside bro God that it's a man down in Terrortown, and that people need to move if they don't want to end up like Gotti.
It's a man down in Terrortown. If you don't want to go, Gotti better move around.
He's got another line where he says he caught his ops lacking and now they know Gotti.
I ain't gonna lie.
He also has the track Sneak Snitching, where he
if I was listening to that song back in the day,
opening the song with an extended intro from the show First 48, explaining how killers are most likely to be found in the first 48 hours of a case, with Von going on to rap
one song that was
the
wrong,
detectives put him in a homicide suspect
but I ain't like that one
because he caught his ops
Damn, I
slipping
sound
and
like a
lying
hater,
to them.
but it's cool.
He goes on to say quite literally that the cops say he pulled up and started shooting, seemingly in reference to the two big drive-by shootings committed against No Limit in 2012. He says his crew don't leave witnesses, and he raps that he leaves his ops on the news and makes them famous. But it wasn't just music being uploaded to YouTube by KTS members. They also begun dropping hood vlogs called On the Lake, showing the behind-the-scenes life on their block and attempting to show maximum disrespect to the ops.
Gotti block, my young niggas got a lot of ops. We say fuck rock. We out here, man. Cut those, man. Pocket. You hear me? From the pocket to the ward to the lake, man. We out here, man. Doing shit in my Tory fit with the Mac out like who the hit? Don't be surprised if them cut those kill ya. The lake, the pocket, 75th. Don't go Gotti. Don't go Gotti. Don't go rock. Don't go.
Bro, that he ass gun, bro.
Fuck the niggas 2 times, man. Die 5, wild out, man. Fuck niggas, man. Fuck rock, fuck
all
Chico.
of them. Fuck it about fuck Ryder.
No, fuck Faison.
Fuck Faison.
Fuck him.
Fuck Chico. Fido. Fuck them all.
Hey, my nigga Mac Man, Imposto. Them 2 niggas y'all don't want to see together, man. Beatty.
But it wasn't just hood vlogs going up on the KTS YouTube channel, because KTS Stray and Von were also known to record themselves going into the ops hoods and pressuring local rivals. They would call these videos their No Lacking series. I assume a play on words against No Limit, recording several clips showing their followers that they were lurking on the No Limit block with their enemies nowhere to be found. They would continue to film passing cars, pondering whether there were ops inside them that were too scared to jump out.
Let me see what it say now. What the essence sign at, folks? This they blue camera.
Definitely not our shit.
Definitely McDonald's right there. It's early. Who this is? 2-4? Let me see my shawty. Let me see. This 2-4.
Flexing on their ass, man. What's up, man?
Oh, say knife and asses. Niggas in trucks riding past. Look at them guys in that right truck. They see us. Oh, y'all know what it is, boy. He come out here, they ass ain't out here. It's dry as hell.
Huh?
My shawties. Ooh, man.
Where them niggas at?
Nah, pause, bro. What did this nigga say?
Somewhere. He come out here, they ass ain't out here.
Nah, niggas is crazy.
Where them niggas at?
They was
It's a joke, obviously. I know what the nigga meant.
They write shit like this on the wall. That's what they write on their walls. They little ass don't be on shit, boy. We be out here. It's late, now niggas ain't out here. It's not 5 in the morning. It's not 5 in the morning. It's not no shit like that. It's 10 o'clock. Gee, where the fuck is all that? And I seen some of you niggas just riding past in them cars. I don't know if that was you or not, Lil Herb. Your ass was in one of them cars, man. Well, fire his ass up too. First thing he do. Niggas hitting alleys and shit. Ain't no motherfucker worried about that shit. All y'all gotta do is start blowing. Hey, I ain't gonna stunt, G. I ain't gonna stunt. If you check the stats, folk, we been fucking niggas up, but we ain't gonna talk about that. Somebody been fucking y'all up down here, boy. We just 2T killing. We ain't fucking around. And we finna, hey, matter of fact, I got a mixtape coming out, folk, called 2T Killer, folk. Called No Love. And ain't no motherfucker got shot in our hood in like 2 years. We gonna keep it real. Nigga ain't got shot from the lake in like 2 years. Nigga ain't been skint or none of that shit. Y'all straight cowards, man. Why y'all block so damn dry, man? We out here scattered though. Y'all ain't get no money. Y'all take all them fake ass videos and fake ass pictures. We definitely out here. There ain't a lot of us either. Y'all be like 50 deep. The niggas riding past looking. Ain't nobody popped out yet. Ain't no motherfucker tried to bust a shot out the car. That's y'all favorite. On that bike? I don't know if it is. Line his ass up though, and I'm gonna get on camera. We gonna sell this shit to World Star Hip Hop. Cause them niggas that be getting shot. How we had a 24-hour spot, Zen? We be here all night and don't nobody never shoot this motherfucker up. Up, and I look like a car full of y'all. I swear to God, that's some of you Vicks. I don't know which ones, but look, we banging at the car though, and the car never come back. Look at it stop on Kingston and never come back. It's gonna keep going on Kofax on the light.
Now, after their first successful foray onto the op block, KTS members would continue the trend, filming themselves lurking for clout once more, this time attracting the attention of the local police.
Hey, so y'all know what time it is, man. Walking in there once again, we hope a nigga pop out so we can light they whole ass up.
Back, they go to police. I ain't even gonna look at their ass, y'all see them. Fuck is it talking about?
They watching the shit out of us.
Watch TV, fuck. They actually hop on us. We ain't doing shit.
We ain't know nothing, man.
Town already famous, damn, goddammit.
They threw him, boy. Them was the police, boy.
They got the laws out here. Helicopters where he at?
But despite the police presence, they would continue lurking, showing off the empty streets nearby and claiming this block as their own. They would also show the time on a flip phone to prove that they had indeed visited the op block at a reasonable time.
I was only seeing one person like they were walking that way. Me and Big Bro, man, real niggas do real things, man.
Y'all know what it is, man. Me and my little brother, real sis. You see him, you gonna see me, man. You bullets, you gonna see slugs. Oh, let me get the time for you, people.
Hold on, wait, get the time.
It's
bro.
8.
Hold on, let me get the 8:33.
And we up to now, my nigga.
8:33 out here, man. Niggas scared white bitches in the car. Niggas ain't no shit, man. Damn, dry as hell. That's one of the folks. That was one of the folks in that car just threw past throwing up the race. I don't know, you gotta know one of us, he throwing up the race. Too many niggas throwing up the race at me.
What's going on? Hold on, get more time. You want what? What part of the city is this? Tarrytown?
Hey, what this is this Tarrytown?
Come here, man. Fuck with us. This Tarrytown? Yes, it is. Right here?
Wait.
This Tarrytown. Hold on, wait, say it again.
This is where we at?
You're in Tarrytown.
Oh,
hey, wait. And we, hold on.
This guy got his ear shot off yesterday.
In Tarrytown?
Yes.
On Acids?
On Acids? No, down there on Saginaw.
Now, Lakeside?
Down on Saginaw.
Lakeside?
Come on.
Come on, man. Y'all just heard this. We from the lake, my nigga. You heard it from their own hypes on their own block, man. We is out here, man.
Them drillers is out.
Hey, man, shit real, man. Y'all see them stores and shit, man. This shit ain't no game, man. You hear me?
Hey, man, y'all know what it is, man. Stop putting that shit up on internet and shit, man, like y'all out here, man. Real shit, man.
We gotta shoot it all the way till we get back.
I terrorize you bitches enough about myself, man. We died a nigga fuck rock block, man. I'm my little brother out here, man.
The green hat y'all be talking about, man.
Hey, just in case y'all ain't know, that is my little brother, man.
Gun
this
squirt,
shit real. He ain't playing with y'all ass, man.
No
Gun squirt.
around.
We walking
No
down,
bang, bang, guns go
no
black,
bang,
bitch.
bang, guns go black. Fuck you. Y'all just shot a fucking cup and y'all put it on Facebook, Instagram.
And then y'all ain't even out here. What the fuck?
Yeah, on this block.
What niggas gang bang like that, fuck?
Niggas gang bang like this. Look at that corner stuff. Ain't nobody out there.
Look at my young niggas.
Why y'all niggas?
Y'all probably can't even see them.
Why y'all niggas?
We gonna get close.
Oh, they coming?
Right there on that corner right there.
Oh, okay.
Niggas ain't out here,
Oh,
man.
let me get you, little bro. What's up? Y'all get ready to fuck with shouting on all type of shit, man. You hear me? YouTube, Instagram.
Out here.
Yeah, you feel me?
Find out who pop rock. Get caught lacking, you get popped.
Gotti block. Gotti block. You hear me, man? We own that. This is the barber shop. They doing it over. Beauty salon. I don't know where we at. It ain't no secret we here.
Oh, Mr. Don't Go Gotti, man. I'm out here on the east. We'll go there now.
Hey, and I'm Mr. Don't Get Rocked, man. You feel me? On back, don't get rocked, man. Don't get caught lacking out here. I just caught one of you niggas lacking the other day, man. You lucky. I ain't gonna say your name. You lucky. We from the lake, man. I thought this was the town.
Niggas ain't even outside for 8:30.
Who ride past? What? No, but it's 8:30, boy. It's 8:30 and you niggas not outside, man. Come on, man. Y'all ain't got no joke. Who the fuck is this? You wanna hit somebody?
But the third installment of the KTS No Lacking video series documented possibly the most infamous moment in this feud. The
think I've seen it.
The cutthroats patrolling the block and passing GD chants back and forth.
Here's Marquette. We're leaving the motherland for a couple seconds. That's all. All the GDNs on the 9 walking this big old down now. They got the cutthroats. Pasto, Dre, we on our that fast shit. You feel me? Leave the motherland for a couple seconds. It ain't shit. No lacking part 2. No lacking part 2. Part 3. Just hold on. What time is it? Hello. What time is it? Wait. Hello. Get the time.
Oh, you twitch.
Hello. Get my time. Get mine. 7:03.
7:03.
7:03, man. Come on. 7:03.
7:03 out
Nigga,
here.
what?
One particular member that's walking with the group to take notice of is Posto.
Get the Pasto.
Yeah, what you trying to do?
Fuck is WH, bro?
Cruising. You feel me? Pasto on my fuck.
No, you doing it wrong. Get it to me.
I ain't say, I ain't even gonna tell y'all who he is. Just know he back down. Fuck you, Tyra.
Y'all already know.
He back down. Fuck Town.
As a group, they would walk down 79th Street until they get to the McDonald's on 2425 on East 79th.
Ain't worried about them hoe ass niggas. They size niggas up. Them niggas gonna go Gotti end up rock. Fuck you.
Oh, man. You said they going in McDonald's.
Bro, what? W?
And if you listen carefully, even as police sirens blare in the background, Posto seems to know that there are ops inside the McDonald's, telling those around him to get them outside so that he can pop them or blast them.
What happened? Blast him. Get him outside. Then I'm gonna pop. You got that on you? Yeah, blast him. Get him outside. Then I'm gonna pop. Yeah, blast him. Get him outside. Then I'm gonna pop.
Yeah, that's us, dumbass. These them killers. These them killers, man.
Yeah, I seen
And
this.
so, after recording themselves walking through the front door of the McDonald's, inside they find numerous members of NLMB catching them completely off guard. The KTS crew then begin to pressure the No Limit members, with KTS Dre grabbing a 17-year-old Cairo, pinning him to a wall and telling him to say fuck Rock, his friend who recently passed away. Cairo would refuse to say this and Dre would punch him in the face. At a certain point, a McDonald's security guard working probably one of the worst jobs in Chicago attempts to usher everybody out, at which point another NLMB member named Moody comes out the bathroom with something apparently tucked into his hoodie.
What you came out turned up?
Damn, no fucking break. We done. Let it sad, man.
I wanted some Mickey D's, bro.
Do try, don't do, man. Let's go.
Hey, man, cut those. KTS, man. Cut those KTS.
Once the KTS crew leave McDonald's, they would walk into the streets in a celebratory mood, with other members waiting outside, seemingly pushing for further confrontation.
We KTS. No, fuck them. We ain't
Fuck them.
No.
No.
Hey, man, my niggas out here. We reckless. We out here, we reckless, bro. No.
I ain't see all this shit.
Shut up. Shut the fuck up, man. Stop running, boy. Fuck.
Oh, back there, drop this bitch ass. Y'all know we on.
As KTS Dre walks away from McDonald's with the camera in hand, a few individuals off screen are heard further back, closer to the No Limit members who were emerging from the McDonald's. And as Von continues to film himself walking away, people are heard off screen mentioning a gun, and a still smiling KTS Von picks up the pace and begins to jog away from the scene, with gunshots eventually being heard in the distance coming after him.
KTS niggas, we out here, we reckless. We gone, fuck is you doing? Come on. Come on, freak. We out here, man. One niggas reckless, man. Hey, shout out to the cutthroats, man. They going crazy. Alright, be cool, don't slow down. Down. We gotta be. Gotta get back to the hood, man. Yes, we got tough.
Hey, this nigga's sick in the head. Why is this nigga laughing?
Members that were being pressured in McDonald's ran and got
Oh,
their
nigga,
hands
get
on the
up out of
nearest
there.
gun, with Posto from Lakeside apparently being shot in the arm during this off-camera confrontation. Following this incident, KTS Von would post the video to social media, with Cairo himself tweeting just how surprised he was that they still put that video up, considering how everything played out in the end. This incident, both the actual physical altercation and the disrespect of posting it online, made KTS Von the top target for No Limit members going forward, with this very confrontation essentially sparking a years-long personal feud between the No Limit and KTS members who were there that night. And clearly this was reciprocated, with the likes of KTS Von appearing regularly on social media, still lurking outside that very McDonald's, looking for further confrontation.
Out here, man. Posto game, man. We were fast shit up. Fuck you talking about? You don't want no McDonald's, bitch. Fuck rock. Posto game.
I'll be covering the bloody back and forths that came as the result of this incident later in the story. But one thing is certain, for better or for worse, this was a watershed moment in Chicago drill history, as is the case for other shocking moments caught on video, like the confrontations that were recorded in the lead up to Lil Jojo being killed. This moment will go down in history as one of the inciting incidents for a long and bloody war that would take place in the years that followed between these two groups of young men, who ultimately, due to petty squabbles, would escalate things to the point where multiple people on both sides would lose their lives before they were even old enough to realize just how precious life really is. And the sad fact is, following the McDonald's incident, an inevitable wave of violent attacks would play out all across Terrortown. In the months that followed KTS members confronting younger No Limit members at McDonald's, violent incidents would play out all across Terrortown. On the 29th of October 2012, the uncle of Mad Max from No Limit, Big Los, real name Carlos Alexander, was walking outside of his home at 10:30 a.m. when two unknown men approached him, opening fire and fleeing on foot. He would sadly pass away, with tributes being left close to the scene of the killing. Mad Max would go on to pay tribute to his fallen uncle on Instagram, with KTS Von rumored to have been involved in the killing, along with another individual from Lakeside by the name of Bud. Naturally, Mad Max would be lurking in the streets looking for revenge for this incident, and it would only take a couple of weeks for that revenge to take place. As on the 10th of November 2012, Bud, real name Anthony Bagsby, was out walking on the 2600 block of East 79th Street at about 12:55 p.m. This is No Limit territory and close to the McDonald's that was featured in the No Lacking Part 3 video. The news reported that 3 to 4 men approached Bud on the street, shooting him several times and leaving him for dead. Mad Max himself was reportedly a shooter on this hit, which appeared to be direct vengeance for the hit on his uncle. Bud would later die in hospital, with the news reporting that the deceased man was known to police to have a lengthy criminal record and gang affiliations, with local friends and family leaving behind a memorial at the scene of his murder, with some breaking the news and sharing personal stories from their life with Bud. Following the death of his alleged fellow shooter, KTS Von would get active on social media the day after the news broke, tweeting disrespect to Fazo, Los, and Rock, and in response to tweets saying RIP Bud, Bud, No Limit members would reply, mocking Bud and saying that Von is next, with No Limit Ramo making a tweet suggesting a No Limit member by the name of Cratehead was involved in the killing of Bud, suggesting that before killing Bud, he had made him say that he was a lakeside killer. The following April 1st, No Limit Cairo would tweet an April Fool's saying that Bud is still alive, hanging out in front of the store, an apparent reference to him being homeless before he passed. But the KTS members weren't discouraged by the violence. Just a day after Bud's murder, KTS Von drops a song called No Love along with a music video uploaded to his YouTube. In the track, he raps that he has youngers killing for him before they're even 16 years old, as well as lines saying once again that he kills people or turns them gotty when he goes on hits. Clearly, KTS Von wasn't worried about catching the attention of his ops, as he even tweeted publicly that he would be attending Bud's funeral on November the 16th, 2012. A bold move considering just how many funeral services get shot up around these parts. He would also post a tribute video with KTS Dre speaking on Bud's death to their YouTube, showing the world that they're still on their block selling drugs and making money, and suggesting that they still have young boys ready to kill.
Y'all know what it is, man. Say Knife Marquette, we out here all day, man. Right here, Say Knife Marquette, man. Say Knife Marquette, blue camera, blue sport, mics. And we getting that though. Ain't nobody out here fucked up neither though. Nobody out here drilling like that. Boy chasing it every day, and I got packs and whatever else you niggas want, man. Come down here. Stop shooting out cars, man. My young niggas, they kill shit, man. My young niggas be drilling, bro. Ain't no old heads out there, ain't none of that shit, man. Just me and my young niggas, man. My young niggas drilling, man. Every day on the lake, fuck. Stop shooting out cars. Stop doing drive-bys. This is not Grand Theft Auto, boy. No limits, get cracked.
Moving into 2013, the war between No Limit and their many ops would continue. But fortunately, away from the streets, the young rappers in Terrortown were also making big steps towards getting their music careers going. On March the 14th, 2013, Lil Bibby drops a big street hit called How We Move featuring King Louie, a track that had lyrics painting a picture of life in Terrortown, where Bibby raps about letting his max spark on ops and turning them into track runners for dissing No Limit. But perhaps Bibby didn't even realize at the time the huge opportunity that he was creating for himself by turning his experiences in the street into art. The top comment on that video today is somebody praising Lil Bibby for taking the opportunity to earn money in the rap game, get out the hood and invest in real estate. And as time went by, the rappers seeing success from Terrortown would realize the opportunity that they had created, taking steps to get away from the cycle of violence that had trapped them. But until their careers had truly flourished, sadly the violence would continue to play out on the streets of Terrortown. The next person to lose their life in the war would be another Lakeside affiliate by the name of D'Angelo Simmons, aka Lolo. On the 5th of April 2013, at about 6 p.m, Lolo and another Lakeside member named Mac Main were walking down the 8000 block of South Manistee Avenue, when they allegedly bumped into Mad Max and another No Limit member, with the news reporting a gunman walking up and opening fire on Lolo, leaving him pronounced dead on the scene just an hour later. It's been claimed that Mad Max is the one who fired the fatal shot into Lolo's chest, while the other No Limit member had allegedly shot an 18-year-old Lakeside member in the foot, with the news capturing that individual being taken away from the scene alive in an ambulance. Lakeside would later refer to their hood as Lolo World in honor of their dead friend, and in the days following the hit, G Faro would tweet about his ops not shooting and Lil Chris, aka Mad Max, doing hits. No Limit Cairo would make numerous tweets disrespecting Lolo and Bud. This was apparently Mad Max's third body in a short period of time. He was seemingly killing well-loved members from Lakeside, one after the other, and developing a fearsome reputation amongst his ops. As a result, Von and Posto were desperate for revenge, sliding on rival turf with itchy trigger fingers looking to kill anybody they found. Eventually killing a rival not from No Limit but from nearby Sircon City, an older set with a loose connection to No Limit. Pharaoh was a Sircon City member who had allegedly had previous beef with Pocket Town, notably dissing a deceased Pocket Town member by the name of Ronnie Moe. Real name Ronnie Arthurs, Ronnie had died in a grisly car crash whilst trying to escape a burglary in January 2013, and he was apparently beloved by KTS members too. So on the 25th of May 2013, many KTS members including Von were out looking for rivals passing through Sircon City territory near Pocket Town. Allegedly, the first person they saw was Pharaoh taking out the trash as his elderly father was too frail to do it. Von allegedly jumped out of the car shooting Pharaoh in the head 8 times. A brutal attack said to have left him near unrecognizable. And to make matters even more grisly, Pharaoh would be found by police under a street lamp under a blood-soaked sheet that had apparently been placed over him. Pharaoh would be pronounced dead at 9:30 p.m. in the 7300 block of South Dorchester Avenue. Pharaoh's family and the local community community were devastated by this loss. But a while after the murder, KTS Von began mocking Pharaoh on Twitter, saying that he got killed in the alley with the trash. He mocked him for getting shot in the face, frequently calling him face-fried Pharaoh, and subsequently even got in a public argument with Pharaoh's girlfriend, who said that they were going to make sure that KTS Von didn't get a funeral. Clearly, KTS Von and others from Lakeside were itching to kill anyone even remotely associated with their ops. And sadly from here, things would only get worse, as going into the summer of 2013, we would see back-to-back violence between No Limit and their rivals, with things escalating even further with every week that went by.
Alright, that's it for this video. If we're gonna be live later today. Whoever's not in the live, so whoever's watching